So today we're going to draw eyes. You might need a couple different types of pencils and erasers in order to be able to do that for light and dark shading. A lot of people, when they start drawing eyes, they use this very basic thing they learned in kindergarten. We all rely on these symbols, but a potato with a dot in the center and dead centipede lashes, and the eyes look like they're way too wide open. We want to steer clear of that. So we're going to start by creating a top arch with maybe a little bit of a lid cut off, a tear duct, and then a much softer arch for the bottom section of this where the lid is overlapping a little. This is a more natural shape to what the human eye would be. Again, it's best if you're looking at an eye. We're just teaching kind of the basic properties of it today. So the top of the iris and the pupil would be cut off by the lids because you're only seeing a small shape. There's the pupil. Everybody's pupil is black because it is a hole. I had a ophthalmologist brother-in-law who one time had a photo posted of him, injecting a giant horse-like syringe through the center of somebody's eye. And my wife asked him about it, and he said, well, yeah, sometimes people's eyes pop out in a car accident, and it's the fastest way, since it's already a hole, to be able to go ahead and fill it back up with gelatinous fluid after we've stitched it, And so that's kind of interesting. But there's a cornea window, a glossy protection over the eye, and you can get some reflections in that, the double bubble, the crescent moon, the bent window, because most of your light sources are circular or square in nature and coming from above. So sort of faking that. And here I'm putting in the little lines in V shapes next to the pupil, and that of course changes in color and pigmentation, but essentially what you're looking at is exposed muscle fiber. So when everybody says, oh, your eyes are so pretty, that's kind of the same thing. It's like, if there was a clear window over your bicep and you could see the muscle fibers there, it would be very similar to that, because the pupil expands and contracts based on what the muscles in that iris do. But next Valentine's Day you can say, hey, I love your exposed muscle fibers, which is kind of gross, but anyway, you get the idea. And that's where some of that variation in pigmentation comes from. It's needs to be shaded a little around the iris, and if you're looking at somebody's real eye, it's going to be different. Right now we're just faking an eye, almost illustrating an eye, but it'll give us some basic proportions to the eye. Notice also that I have drawn a double line on the underside lid because the pink is usually exposed enough that you can see a line of pink on that underlid. I'll go around and just shade the iris a little bit more, try and get some radiant pop out of it. Maybe use a little bit of a blender stub to do some alternate shading. And after this, I'll be looking to start creating lids and lashes, which make for, an eye. A lot of people draw the eye without the bone structure around the eye, and that's a mistake. The eye and the presence of the eye really depend heavily on the eyebrow, the brow, the bridge of the nose, the lids, to draw it into a three-dimensional form. So we'll also be shading a little bit. Just even the whites of the eyes will be subject to some shadow, and so I'm going to just shade them a little bit to give it a three-dimensional flow. I'd suggest you do the same if you're just starting out with drawing eyes today. Just the light shading, And let's see what else. If you have a kneaded eraser, you can lighten things up just gently by tapping it and absorbing some of that lead. The tan eraser, there's a gum eraser that peels out very smoothly, leaves very few smudges, and I just drew a general kind of reflection over the eye. So the eyelid is going to arc way up because the lid should be representative of the whole curve of the eye. We're only seeing a small pie-shaped slice. So to give you an example here, let's do a side profile of the human skull, and let's look at a pizza-like piece of the eye. I just finished that up. Okay, so a side profile might look like that, but the actual eyeball, of course, is much bigger, maybe golf ball size, plus or minus a little bit. There you go. So we have to keep that in mind, even with forward-facing eyes, which people will tend to draw a little bit on the flat side. Even my drawing here today, I'm not getting quite as much three-dimensional nature out of it as I would like, but when you're drawing eyes face on, it's easy to not get 3D enough. So make sure those lashes, they kind of bend out or curl out towards the edge. You're making these kind of little J-shaped sweeps with pencil line. The bottom of the lid much more sparse. You know, most debris falls into your eye from above, so those lashes are pretty thick on the top. The brow will lead to a lot of expression. You can play with that at your will, but that'll change everything about it. The bone brow is a little different, though. Like you have, you know, the bridge of your nose, the bone brow, which your eyebrow may align with that perfectly or not. This was basic eye proportion without using a reference. Using a reference will get you better faster, of course. So use your own eye and try it out. Have fun.